Hi, welcome back to McNally's Musket Missive. I'm Harry McNally, and this is a musket. Today we're talking about the Model 1840, America's last flintlock musket. Like its predecessor, the Model 1816/22, and the 1812 and the Charleville pattern before it, it's a Charleville-derived 69 caliber smoothbore flintlock. The Ordnance Department was still following the French modifications, so in 1829 they sent Daniel Tyler to France to come back with some French Model 1822 muskets for them to examine. Springfield wasn't very impressed with the quality of these muskets. They felt the workmanship was inferior to what we were turning out at Springfield and Harper's Ferry. Presumably that's because we were chasing that goal of interchangeable parts, and I guess the French weren't. In any event, they felt the build quality of the French muskets was nowhere near as good as what we were turning out, but the Ordnance Department decided to chase after some of the modifications to the design that the French had adopted. In particular, the redesign of the stock comb. However, for them to do that, they would have to make new stock blanks and let the wood age for several years. So what would have been the Model 1835 was postponed and became the Model 1840. The Model 1840 was only made at Springfield and a couple of contractors. Harper's Ferry sat this one out. Everybody knew that the next model of musket was coming soon, and it was going to be percussion, and Harper's Ferry had enough parts on hand to continue making Model 1816/22s up until that point. So from 1840 to 1844, 30,421 of these muskets were made at Springfield. Of those, less than 2 dozen remain in their original flintlock configuration, and as you can see, this is actually not one of them. This is a reconversion back to flint. I'm assuming it was done at the behest of a collector who wanted to have a representative example in his collection. If it's a forgery, it's not a very good one. But the changes from this to this from the 1816 are visible if you know what you're looking for. The ramrod has been redesigned. It's got a trumpet head instead of the button tip. This was actually a change they wanted to make with the standard model of 1815, but never did. The front sight has been moved from the back to the front of the front band. The front band itself has been redesigned. The bayonet stud has been relocated to the bottom of the barrel instead of on top. The brass flash pan is now horizontal, which was a reversion back to how it was before the 1816. And there's now a fence on the back, and I believe that's there to prevent spillage of your priming charge. Other than that, it's, and of course the stock comb that I mentioned before, but other than that, it's a Charleville-derived smoothbore musket. So that's about all I really have to say about that. Let's get it to the light box, and I'll highlight the differences between this and the 1816. But like I said, there's not a whole lot of them. Okay, so here we have the musket. Other than that stock comb I was talking about, it's not really a whole lot different from the 1816/22. The comb, referring to the part of the stock you rest your cheek against. And here I've got a photo of the Model 1816 for you to compare it to. Note that it doesn't have that tall rise to the stock at the butt like the Model 1840 does. So here we are with the lock. You notice basically it's more or less the same, except that it's got that fence at the rear of the pan. Moving forward, this is actually the wrong barrel band for this musket. It appears to be off of a Model 1855 or a Model 1861. Going forward, more of the same really. And then here we have the new front band. As I said before, the front sight's been moved to the very front of it. It's got that curvature to it the 1816 didn't, and the bayonet lug is now on the bottom of the barrel. Also note the new trumpet-headed ramrod, and on this example it sticks out past the muzzle. That's not correct. There's some kind of obstruction inside the stock keeping it from going all the way in. It's supposed to be about flush with the barrel end, but over the years it's not uncommon for something to get trapped inside the ramrod channel, so you'll see this a lot in old muskets. We've got the other side of it. Basically, the only change here is the side plate. Instead of the elongated S of the Charleville pattern, you've got a much more simplified rounded J or L, however you want to refer to it. It's important to note that I didn't mention this during the episode. The Model 1840 was actually the first musket that was completely parts interchangeable. a lot of people point to the Model 1842, but the Model 1840 was the first. The Model 1842, as I'll mention next episode, was the first fully purchased interchangeable musket made at both national armories. They finally got it right for the Model 1840. Again, that new side plate, the faint remains of an inspection cartouche, which is always nice to find on one of these muskets. They can wear off just from general handling if you're not careful. Here we've got the proof markings, V for verified, P for proofed, and the eagle head. And to the left of that, about an inch, you can see another proof marking. I'm not really sure about this one. It appears to be a Harper's Ferry proof marking. And Harper's Ferry didn't make these, so I'm not really sure what's going on with this. I do know it's not an original 1840. It appears to be made from parts, and I'll go into that in a second. So yeah, as you can see, the lock and the pan don't meet flush with the barrel, which is another indication that these aren't original to each other. You'll notice that discoloration about even with the flash pan there. That's where the cone would have been on a percussion conversion. So that tells me this has been monkeyed with. Also note the date on the tang, 1841, with the 1 being off. It's raised up. It's not quite in line with the other numbers, and it's got a little weird space to it as well. This tells me that this has just been, cobbled together to look like an original Flint configuration Model 1840. This is about as good as I'm really going to get anyway. The cost for one of the few original 1840s is about equal to a car. So, yeah, I'm not likely to get one anytime soon. There isn't really a whole lot to this episode, because really this is just another Charlotte-derived flintlock smoothbore. This musket is really only notable for the fact that they didn't make that many of them, and that it is the last flintlock that was produced by the United States. So with this, we say goodbye to the era of the rock banger, and say hello to percussion arms, but that's a story for our next episode. Thank you very much for watching. I want to say a big thank you to both of my Patreon supporters. I've doubled them. If you like what I'm doing, please consider joining them. There's a link below to my Patreon. And as always, click like, subscribe, and share to help out with the algorithm. Thanks very much for watching. Bye.